and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly.
And I'm Matt Freeman.
And this week on the show, we're going to be changing things up. We're calling an audible. Matt is under the weather, and as such was not able to watch the film for our council episode this week. We were supposed to watch the film Bahubali, but Matt was unable to do that, so we're pushing that episode to next week.
That's
Yet
right.
He's still here somehow.
Yeah. Well, it was doctor's orders, Michael. He specifically said no watching 3-hour Indian epic films for the next week.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what he said.
That is it's specifically what he said. Oddly specific. So instead, we had to throw together a last minute audible episode. And that is why we are joined by the wonderful, the incomparable, and the frankly, just annoying as hell. Michael is here. How's it going, Michael?
Now, will I be getting in on this Audible sponsorship?
That's not like an audible, like the football move, not like the audible.
Oh, well, that was a misunderstanding.
Yeah,
then.
I'm sorry. There will be no money for attending this episode. I'm sorry.
I'm so regretting this.
But the reward is that we get to talk about The Boys.
There was a lot. I don't know if you were waiting for someone to say something or if you were just going for it.
Oh, I was waiting for someone to say something.
Oh, well,
but
okay.
then they didn't.
Okay. Yes, this week we are going to talk about the Amazon Prime original series, The Boys. All three of us have seen the first season of this show. And I think, Matt, are we both... How's the hot chocolate there, Michael?
It's good.
I'm glad. I believe, Matt, have you seen all the released episodes of season 2 so far?
I believe so. Unless
All
they
5
snuck
of
one by
them?
me.
Yeah. I don't think, Michael, you've seen any of season 2. So we're going to really keep the season 2 spoilers to, very bare bones, just general conversation to not spoil you.
Yep.
And so
you promised me we were going to do the Boys podcast like 8 months ago.
that's true. That is true. And then our schedule went nuts and we could never make it happen. And then the moment passed and we were like, ugh. But the moment's back because the boys are back in town. And we're going to talk about them.
Yes,
and then,
they are.
And then I think we're just going to finish up the show just, doing what we're doing right now, which is have Michael act ridiculously. We're going to just talk about other random stuff we've been watching. It's going to be a very loose show. This was a last minute change that we had to do. So we haven't done a lot of prep work for the show. But I think it's going to be a good one. We still wanted to give you folks a show. And we know that Michael is just a show in and of himself. Right,
Yeah.
Michael?
They call me the show.
They
It's
do.
true.
They do.
So we're bringing, this is the new tone that you can look forward to for the next 100 episodes, just FYI.
I do think it's
What's-
funny that on our 100th episode last week,
Same
the
time.
one thing that we said was we don't want to do as much TV. And then what do? The very next episode, let's talk about a TV show.
Yes, it just so happens that I just already had watched this. This was the only other thing that I had watched in the whole world that we hadn't yet done a Doofcast on. So it was
Yes.
kind of the only option.
It was. And we're glad you're taking care of your eye and not straining your eye by watching a 3-hour long movie. So
Yes.
your eyes are important to you and they're important to me, Matt. They're
Yeah.
important to me.
You rely on your eyes a lot, is what I've discovered this week.
That's true. Michael, how do you feel about eyes?
Frankly, they make me want to vomit.
He's not
Hey,
lying.
Wait, really?
it's a long story.
It's a whole thing, everyone.
It's a whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
But we'll just leave that at that. And we'll
guess
talk
so.
about The Boys.
Yeah, so let's talk about The Boys. The Boys is a show, as we said, on Amazon Prime. It is based off the Garth Ennis graphic novel of the same name. I'm not sure how long that graphic novel ran. I haven't read it. Did either of you guys read that? I don't think so.
No, in fact,
Graphic novels were just one thing.
I don't know. It's like I don't know.
yeah. I mean, I don't want to read it now because I feel like it would spoil me, even if it deviates from the story. I feel like there's going to be some setting spoilers in there.
Have
Sure.
you read a graphic novel before?
At least one, yeah.
I was given both The Watchmen and what's the Batman one that's really famous by Frank Miller? The Dark Knight
Dark Knight.
Returns.
Something
like that.
Dark Knight Returns. Yeah, that sounds right.
I didn't know what to do with them, frankly.
You just read them.
Wasn't a fan.
Okay.
It's like, do I look at the pictures? Do I read the words? What do I do?
I honestly, that is a struggle I have with comics where I just start reading the words and I stop looking at the pictures, or I just start looking at the pictures and I stop reading the words. And I'm like, how do you do both at the same time?
Yeah.
I can't.
How am I supposed to be transported to another world inside of my head if there's pictures distracting me?
Fair.
and/or words.
Yeah.
Or words.
This is why
I could do one or the other.
This is why I like comics like Achewood, where it's basically just dialogue with a perfunctory image showing you who's talking.
Yeah, but that's a web comic. We're talking about graphic novels here.
We're talking about graphic novels, Matt.
I'm sorry. Shit. I've embarrassed myself.
Graphic novels are for the sophisticates of the comic world.
I read this somewhere. You have to, when you're reading a graphic novel, you have to have your pinky up. If you don't do that, the book like combusts.
I heard in Japan they yell at you if you don't do that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay, so the show, though, The Boys. This is a show that is show run by a guy named Eric Kripke. I believe it is produced by Seth Rogen. It's part of like Seth Rogen's big television production thing, where he's been bringing comic books to TV. I think Preacher is another one of those that actually I think is also a Garth Ennis a graphic novel as well.
Sorry, I was getting bored
the whole time.
I was getting bored of all your backstory. Go on.
Okay. Well, now I've lost my train of thought. So thank you,
Garth. All I really registered actually was Seth Rogen was involved in this somehow, which was so shocking to me that I had to reevaluate my whole everything.
Yeah, I don't like it.
So Garth Ennis, though, is a comic book writer that's pretty infamous for, crude, overly violent, disgusting, trying to push the envelope for the sake of pushing the envelope type of comic storytelling. And I think, when we look at The Boys, that is definitely a lot of what this show is. But I think the success of the show is that it is more than that. So I guess, Michael, if you want to start, tell me, like, what you've watched season 1. What do you think about The Boys? What's your overall thoughts about it?
Well, Scott, I'm glad you asked. The Boys is a television show produced by Garth Wiskowski with the help of Joe Rogan. And look, I wasn't listening to your intro.
You like The Boys, Michael?
Yeah, that's all I asked. I asked if you liked The Boys.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I've just been stalling while I thought of the answer. I'll say yes.
Cool.
Yeah. So, are we
awesome?
Next topic now, or what? Okay, well, let me. I could tell you want me to say more things. So, superhero things in general, not a fan. But what we're doing here is we're deconstructing the superhero genre. I think, and I think in that it's much more interesting because instead of the superhero, like the Batman in Batman, I can never take seriously. He's just like a lunatic who runs around and commits crimes, and that's basically what The Boys are. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's what would happen if we had superheroes. So I approve.
Yeah.
Matt, what do you think about this show?
I like it. I think it's one of those great, things in modern television where it really shows what you can do with the sort of serialized, long form, but not too long form, because I mean it's what, like 10 episodes or something per season, which is in my opinion, just right. I think that it does really good storytelling. I think that each of the episodes is structured really well. Like I can't think of a bad episode for this show. And that's, I think I mentioned before, like in our last episode, actually, we talked about TV shows and how really only takes a couple of bad episodes to turn me, personally against the show. I'm just like, okay, you've betrayed me. You've wasted my time. But this show, still hasn't had a bad episode. Everything still tracks. Long-term character arcs work for me. There's a lot of characters. There's a lot of different plot threads between different characters in a satisfyingly complex knot. And it's all consistent and it's all kept track of. And they seem to know what they're doing storytelling wise. honestly, for me, like the shocking violent stuff, I guess I'm just totally desensitized as a person because of what media has been like in recent years, but I barely even notice it personally. So that's me.
Yeah, I mean, it for the most part it makes me laugh. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
kind of silly. Like, and I think the first episode of the show is such a wonderful tone setting moment where you have our main character, Huey, with his girlfriend sitting there kissing, and then she just is vaporized by a speedster running right through her. And that
Yeah.
just is like a perfect tone setting moment of what the show is, because it is both this over the top, gratuitous, nasty show, and also this like really like dramatic and powerful introspective dive into these characters. I mean, we spend a lot of time on the boys, on Butcher, on Huey, on Frenchie, and what they're going through, and the reason why they're doing this, the reason why they're trying to bring down these superheroes, and the stakes that they have in it. It's all very personal for them, and like the show spends time defining all this stuff and exploring all this stuff with each of them. So to me, it's kind of a marvel how it can flip back and forth between this over the top absurdity and these deeply dramatic and personal stakes that carries the show from moment to moment. I think it's remarkable, actually.
I think it's what Batman versus Superman should have been,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the beginning, where they're trying to show you really quickly how Batman is against Superman because of all of the like reckless stuff that happens. But the most effective way of doing that was what they did in the first episode here with, well, several different characters actually, but one,
Sure,
the one you referenced with the speedster. Like if there's someone moving that fast through a city and they run into someone, then it's going to be something horrifically violent like that.
Yeah. But then A-Train has this whole complicated plot of his own throughout the first season and into the second, and we're trying to be as vague as possible about the second season for your sake, Michael. But yeah, he's got a lot going on as well. Starlight is a character we haven't mentioned yet, but her relationship both with Huey and with the Seven itself, like that this again tone setting moment in the first season of basically sexual assault that Deep commits on the Starlight character.
Right.
It is like the show is not playing that scene for laughs. It is fully cognizant of the seriousness of that thing, and we are appropriately disgusted by the action.
Yeah. I notice a lot of what I'm going to dub complex badness.
Mm-hmm.
Where you've got A-Train, you've got Homelander, you've got Deep. They're all bad people, but they're bad people in different ways, and you don't really get the sense that with any of them you're going to get just a nice, clean Jamie Lannister moment where it's like, actually, you've just misunderstood them the whole time. And they're actually quite a good person, and they're actually a hero deep down. It's like, no, they're probably just the way you perceive them to be.
Yeah.
But you can still hope for some evolving complexity, and that complexity may not look anything like redemption, but it, at the very least, is going to be something kind of refreshing and interesting, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, two caveats to that are that one, like the boys are also not good.
Yeah.
They're pretty bad. And two, like although the Seven don't necessarily get redemption, they are all human. Like you do understand why they act the way they are, and a lot of it is kind of like a very exaggerated like celebritydom. Like they're all all kind of how a lot of celebrities would act and not necessarily realize what they've become, but you can see how they've gotten there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Homelander is just a wonderful example of that, and he is without a doubt one of my favorite villains of the past like years in television. Like I think first of all, the actor who's playing him is putting in just amazing work, but he is the take Superman, but what if he was bad thing has been done like over and over and over again, right? That's been done so many times. But Homelander is the first time I felt like genuine terror watching this thing, like knowing that like this guy could just do whatever he wants and literally no one could stop him. Like no one could stop him. There's a scene in season 2, and I'm trying to be vague here, where you see him basically lose his shit and kill a bunch of people, and it ends up being just something that's in his head. But like, I believed in that moment that the show was going to go there. I really did. And I was like, okay, so this is where we are now. Okay. And he's just consistently terrifying. Like, even when he's just standing there being happy, he's got that smirk on his face. And it's just like every scene he's in, I am uncomfortable.
Right. Well, I think what the whole first season did for me was it set this guy up, in giving us his backstory, giving us an understanding of what he wants and what motivates him. We're just like, okay, this is just a ticking time bomb. Like, stuff like that scene you just referenced. I think the show is very intentionally like pushing us toward believing like, okay, we're really counting the days until this guy just loses it. And like, what is, what are the things that are holding him back from doing that? And there's relatively few people in the story who actually understand how bad the situation is, which I think is a delightful sort of tension where it's like how many characters actually know that Homelander is a horrible monster. And then at the end of season 7, some of those people die, so it's like even less. And sure. I don't know. I love the like you said. What's great about it is it's taking the idea of the all powerful the all powerful bad Superman, but it's mixing in a heavy dose of like celebrity, right? And the power of wealth and power and what comes along with that, and
just pure narcissism too. Like God, do you like Homelander, Michael?
I do. But I like him. I actually think I'm more impressed with how they've handled like the Deep's character, because Homelander is what I would have done instinctually to just show like a hero being bad, which is like, he's all powerful, no one can stop him. So he's a narcissist and he does whatever he wants and he's really violent. And there are some interesting elements, like his kind of mommy issues with what's her face.
Yeah.
But the Deep was interesting because they make you hate him completely in the first episode.
Yeah.
Like it's like if Homelander killing like, 30 innocent people because of what television has done to me wouldn't have made me hate Homelander. But like what the Deep did is just like feels disgusting. And you're like, oh, gross. Oh, this is, wow. With this scene, they've really like set the tone for like how disgusting the 7 thing is. And then somehow by the end of the season, they kind of made me like feel sorry for him. Like, it seems like he's kind of also like caught in this, in maybe some sort of abusive cycles. And I was impressed that they were able to make me feel some sort of, sympathy for him.
Yeah. And to not give too much away about the next season, like they're taking that and going really interesting places with it. Like, I'm really into where the Deep is going in this season. Like, it's taking not the pity you feel for him, but like it's taking a redemption arc, but it's not really doing a redemption arc. It's doing what a celebrity redemption arc would look like. And that's really fascinating.
It's not a way I would have predicted, so that's good.
And I do think like the Deep is, I like him as a character, and I think you're right. I think he's fascinating. I did have a problem with how the show handled the tone with him. The one real critique I have of the show is that I feel like you said, in the first episode, they make you hate him. And then basically from then on, he's just the dude getting shit on for the next 9 episodes. And a lot of times they're playing that as comedy. And it is a little uncomfortable to have a person established as the character who did this despicable thing. And then in the next episode, we're like, but isn't it really funny how he tried really hard to save that dolphin, and then it went flying through the windshield and died, and he like cried out for it. Isn't that hilarious? This rapist did this. So that dynamic like was hard on me for a while. But as I do agree that as you kind of observe what they're doing with him more and more, and I don't even know if it's like, I don't even know if like we're supposed to pity him. I just think like he's just a messed up dude.
I don't think it's trying to. I mean, the show is not trying to win you over to anyone's side, because I think it pretty much admits that everyone is doing things that are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe what it does is just contextualize him a little bit and be like, well, what he was doing here is kind of a manifestation of how no one respects him, and he was like trying in a really perverted way to like have authority over someone, which is a terrible thing that is, again, no way justifiable. But it's kind of like, there's sort of these cycles of people abusing each other that I think is what it was kind of contextualizing, while also, like you said, trying to be funny, which doesn't always feel balanced right.
Well,
but
yeah.
I mean, it's I don't know. Like for me, it's such a dark and mean humor that I'm just like, yeah, I don't feel bad laughing at this piece of shit guy.
Sure.
I don't know. It's interesting. I'm sort of trying to understand, because for me it was always just like you create a guy that you can hate, and then it's fun to laugh at his misfortune. And and that's definitely kind of a dark way of interacting with it. But that's how it feels like they're going for, to me anyway.
Yeah, and I will say that I do think the show is very, it feels like it, at least, it's very cognizant of this kind of weird dynamic that it's done, that it has this character who is this despicable monster in some ways, and it is doing this long-term plot line with him. And that's why, again, no spoilers, I am so interested in what they're doing with him in the second season, because I think they are aware of this whole thing, and they are doing something that it's gonna be really interesting. Like, I don't know where it's going yet. We're only 5 episodes into the second season so far, but I'm really on board for it. Like, it's weird and delightful in all the ways that the show is weird and delightful. It is tapping into the religious commentary that it made in the first season in different ways. It's really interesting, and that's, I mean, in general, I think I am enjoying the second season way more than I enjoyed the first season. And this is a show I already really liked, because I think they are taking what is the central idea of the story, which was superheroes, but what if they're bad and corrupted by the evils of capitalism, basically, right? That was the basic premise of the first season. But they're expanding that in really interesting ways, and they're saying things about social media, and they're saying things about how we manipulate and control people, and they're saying things about a lot about the world we currently live in as well.
Yeah, I guess what I'd say about the difference between season 1 and season 2 is that all of the stuff that I said about character and plotting is just as strong,
if not stronger.
If not stronger, but they are being more, they're saying more, and they're saying more kind of novel and surprising things about modernity. They're making more social commentary, and so far it's always been in a way where I'm either like, at the minimum, I'm like, oh, that's pretty clever, or I'm like, well, that's just a really original way of thinking about that, and now I have to go think about that for a while, and that's always a fun thing for a piece of media to do.
Yeah, 100%. One thing I'll say, I haven't read the comic book, but I have read about the comic book, and on top of being like, basically it's just the gross out, like, push your buttons side of the story without any of like the deep character work side of it, but on top of that, apparently in like the first issue, the boys all get superpowers. And that's like the dumbest choice you could make, I think. I think the reason the show works is because our protagonists are completely in over their head.
Yeah.
That these people could kill them at any moment.
Yeah. I mean, the whole episode where they've got Translucent trapped in a box, or is that more than one episode maybe? Like, that was some of the most intense stuff in the show for me. I think that was kind of the hook for me, honestly. And yeah, that only works because they're like, there's hazards at every corner, and they're basically just making it clear how impossible their job is. Like, it's all the fun of a heist movie where the odds are completely stacked against you, and you have to continually think of like really elaborate plans to do the slightest thing, except it's a heist where instead of breaking into a vault, you're just trying to hoodwink people who are have super senses and can't be harmed and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always.
I think it's a very fun.
It's always more fun to follow the characters with the least amount of power, which is what it does.
Especially like I think you said that moment was the hook for you, Matt, and I think the reason is because of Huey. I think Huey's this really wonderful character who was, especially early on in the season, was this guy just filled with rage. He's filled with rage at the injustice for what happened to the woman he loves, and he wants revenge. He wants payback. He wants to do something. And like Butcher is this guy who's like, okay, great. I'm going to use that. I'm going to use your rage towards my purposes. And then Huey suddenly finds himself in this place where he's just in way over his head, where they've got this guy captured, and what are we going to do? We can't kill him. We don't know how to kill him. We're fucked. And I was just mad and hurt and heartbroken. And now suddenly I have a superhero kidnapped and captured in my basement. And what the fuck am I going to do now? And his moment of killing Translucent is it's such a moment, right? Like, it's just like the moment where, I mean, I was into the show from the very, very beginning, but the moment where he presses the button and blows up Translucent, I was like, oh, okay, we're doing something here. Mm-hmm. We really are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that I like most about Huey is that he's actually it's not just cut and dried. Okay. It's not just, okay, Huey is the heart. Huey is goodness. Huey is pure. It's like, no, actually, Huey is sort of falling apart gradually and doing terrible things and feeling terrible about these things. And there's no moment in the show where it's like, oh no, we're definitely doing the right thing. We're definitely the good guys. Like, it's just destroying him. All of the things that he's having to do are destroying him, and that's way more interesting to me than just like, he's the hero. He's Frodo Baggins. We're gonna win.
I mean, they let you know right off the bat when they introduce Butcher. Like, you don't trust Butcher. Huey's being manipulated, so he's walking into a situation that isn't all going to be good. So I think that's how Butcher needs to be, and it's good that it's from Huey's perspective and not like just Butcher's revenge story, because then it wouldn't be that interesting.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Butcher, correct me if I'm wrong here, because I might just be misunderstanding, but Butcher tells everybody for most of the show that Homelander kidnapped and raped and murdered his wife. But it seems that what actually happened is that his wife had a consensual affair with Homelander, and then when she realized she was pregnant, she decided to run away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the big cliffhanger ending of the first season.
That's the big shocker. And so yes, the confirmation that she's alive is the cliffhanger ending. The video that he sees of them going to the hotel room for me was a big shock, because that was the reveal of like, oh, this has nothing to do with, this is not what he's telling everyone it is. This is about his like masculine pride, that this guy fucked his wife. This is not about, revenge in that sort of sense. This is just this is much more kind of petty than he's making it out to be. And that to me was really interesting.
He does think that Homelander killed her, though. I think. Like, I think he learned that she was alive at the same time we did, if I'm remembering correctly. So, yeah, I mean, he is building. I'm not clear how much he knew and what he knew and when he knew it, but I do think there is something to that. I think I think the show is using the title "The Boys" in a very clever way, right? It is talking about these things. It is talking about the toxic side of these masculine. I don't want to say urges, because that feels like the wrong word, but like there's a bunch of pride Butcher has all rolled up into this thing, and that is part of what is motivating him for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I mean, yeah, like Michael said earlier, like the boys are also bad people. I like my complex badness label, because it's like, yeah, there's no I do think Huey is probably the closest thing to the heart, or like the Huey Starlight interaction is where you're supposed to feel like,
Right.
you're rooting for something good to happen,
because they're both
here.
sort of the bottom rung of their respective organizations who see something wrong with the way things work and want to change it.
Yeah. But they are so limited in the power they have to actually make that change. And they're trying, but the methods, at least on Huey's side, that he's trying kind of just dig him deeper and deeper into this hole. I mean, the thing that I don't know about this show is like it was greenlit for a season, and then they like immediately, like as soon as the first season was released, they like immediately ordered 2 more seasons. So we're definitely getting at least 1 more season of this. But I think Amazon would love to just keep rolling the show out for as long as they could. And I'm wondering like what the show looks like in a few years. Like I mean, you can kind of keep running with the superheroes, but incisive social commentary with deep characters that we care about. Like I feel like you can run that back for a while if you want to. I don't know, like this, it doesn't seem like a show to me that, contrary to what modern TV has become, this doesn't seem like a show that like set out with a clear endpoint, that knew, okay, by season 4 we're going to get to the big bad of the show or anything, and that's what we're going to do. It feels a much more loose, just like, let's just play in this world. Let's just play in this world for a few seasons and see what happens here. And that is the type of TV that I love, and I think is rarer and rarer these days. And that's also one of the reasons why I'm really, really loving the show.
I think there is a natural endpoint. I mean, the end of the show is going to have to be the whatever resolution of the Homelander Billy Butcher conflict, I think.
I mean, maybe. Like I don't disagree with you, and I agree, like this Vought Compound V stuff is like our ongoing through line of a plot. But like I don't know,
the
like
Compound V stuff seems to be more like a maybe couple season storyline or something. I don't know what they've done in season 2, but in terms of like this is a show about characters, like we've said, and that's why it's interesting. And once we resolve these central character issues, then I think the show needs to end. I think if they just introduce more heroes and villains, then I think it'll feel like it's dragging on.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I tend to agree with that if they just continue the plates spinning, or they do the thing where they're like, okay, well, Mother's Milk's relationship with his family wraps up. We solve that plot thread, but then we introduce a new plot thread for that character. It's like, okay, come on. Like I do tend to get annoyed and kind of bored by that. Like that was my complaint always with Lost.
Right.
Was like, okay, you don't know what you're doing, and so you're just gonna start throwing more stuff in there, even if it's like grossly inconsistent with what the character has been up to this point.
Right, yeah. Just like completely out of nowhere, new things from their past. That's like, oh, that changes everything.
But I mean, I think Scott has a point that if they started it not knowing how they were going to end it necessarily. So, I mean, I feel like Homelander is the villain, right? Like if you kill Homelander in this show, I don't know if it's the boys anymore, and maybe maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, again, I'm trying desperately not to spoil too much, but I do think the most recent episode 5 of season 2, kind of argues maybe not. Like as far as him being the main villain of the series, like there's more going on. Like one of the things that season 2 is broadly doing that's very interesting is showing how much bigger part of this thing is than just Homelander as the big bad evil guy. Like the Vought as a company is becoming a much broader, encompassing.
See, to me, that kind of story expansion doesn't add anything. It actually like stories are actually about characters. And if it like turns out that like actually this big bad company was pulling the strings the whole time, like it's fine as a detail. But to me, like Homelander is still has to be the nexus there.
Well, yeah, but I think the importance of that plot line is how it affects Homelander specifically, because it Homelander has, for his entire existence, basically been the strongest, the fastest, the best at everything. He has no rival. He's not, no one can stack up to him. And he's learning that that's not necessarily true, that there is limitations to his power, that there is things he can't do, that there are problems he can't solve. And he's learning that. And that is, you're taking a character who is basically a psychopath and then throwing him into a situation where he can't superhero his way out of it. And what will his reaction be? And what will he be willing to do? And what will he not be willing to do in that new dynamic? It's incredibly frightening, but it's also fascinating. And that's what I love about the wrinkle about the stuff they're doing with Vought, the stuff they're doing with the new character this season, played by Aya Cash, who is just like one of my favorite actresses in the world. I love her. I don't know if either of you have watched the show You're the Worst on FX.
Mm-mm.
One of my favorite television shows. I absolutely loved it. It's hilarious. It's irreverent and it's wonderful. I loved it. But she is playing this character called Stormfront in this show that is just like, holy shit. I love her. I love her so much.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil anything for you, Michael, and anyone else out there that hasn't watched the second season. But like, there is always a moment when I'm watching a new TV show and we move on to the next season and they're like, okay, now there's a new character. There is always that moment where I'm like, are they just like, are they running out of ideas? Are they just like trying to throw in someone to mix it up? The whole Poochie thing. Every time I see a new character, I'm worried they're a Poochie. And now she slots into this show and like is key to exactly the way they're expanding upon the story in ways that I love in the second season.
That's a really good point. Yeah. It's like when they added Desmond to Lost, and he was actually a good addition.
Yeah.
And they didn't fuck it up until later. But no, I agree completely. Like if she is an indicator of kind of the manner in which they're going to approach making it a continuing story, then yeah, I'm all here for that. You know, there was another character I think in just the last episode that they more or less introduced, and I don't know if he's going to play a big role in the story, but I was like, oh, I didn't expect this to come into the story, but now that he is a character, I sort of hope he sticks around, actually.
Are you talking about Lamplighter?
Yeah.
Okay. The Lamplighter, Michael, for your benefit, is a character that has basically Pyro's powers from X-Men, where he can't create flame himself, but like if he holds a lighter and shoots flame out of it. And he's played by Sean Astin, the guy who played Iceman in X-Men, which is... It's just fucking hilarious. I feel like they do stuff like this on purpose sometimes, and they just like, wouldn't it be really funny if we cast him as the Pyro character? Like, I don't know. I think great. I think it's fantastic. There's a lot of like, it's so funny because the show is this mix of, deep, complex character stuff, irreverent, violent, disgusting humor, and then just these random winks at taking shots at the superhero industry in general. Like the Seven, of course, are the Justice League, right? And in season 2, they're literally making a movie called Dawn of the Seven, and it is the worst shit ever. And I think there's a quote in one of the episodes where it says, Whedon rewrote that or something. Like they literally like take a shot at Joss Whedon.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I don't know how, like, I feel like at times I'm watching this and I'm like, this shouldn't all work in the same show. And yet it really does. Yeah,
no, that's a good point. Like, there will be very rare moments where I'm like, the tone felt a little wobbly there. But then I reflect on it and I'm like, this is pretty impressive that they can manage the shift between like extremely dark, violent humor and sweet romance between Starlight and Huey, and then like superhero combat, and then like bro bonding moment between two of the boys, and then just some other sort of like crass inappropriate humor that isn't necessarily violent but is just like really mean-hearted. It does all of these things, and it's actually rare that you feel like a moment falls flat. And I think that's incredibly impressive, especially with this many hours of storytelling.
Yeah, I think I agree with that 100%. Yeah. So, I mean, Michael, you have not watched season 2 yet. Or is it just you haven't gotten around to it yet, or you're just like, I really wasn't into it enough to spend any more time in this world?
I'm going to watch it. I think I watched it with my parents over holiday break and probably do that again.
That's hilarious to
Why?
me. Because your mom is like the sweetest woman in the world. And like, I'm just imagining her watching the scene of the one chick like on top of the like getting
Grinding
eaten
the
out
guy's
by the
skull.
dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then like smashing his skull while getting eaten
Oh,
out.
yeah. She loves that shit.
Yeah. Moms are crazy, man.
Oh, man. That's great. That's great.
Hmm.
Anything else you wanted to talk about here? I feel like we've just really scratched the surface of the show, but I am just so on board for everything it's doing. I really am. I like the new episode comes out tomorrow. By the time people are listening to this, they might have already watched it. And I'm like, where the last episode left off, I'm super, I'm super into it. I really am.
Yeah, I have that thing right now where I'm actually so invested in the story that I'm like worried, you know? Like it's not just like, oh, I'm into it, this is fun. It's like I'm like a little bit apprehensive
that they're gonna like fuck it up.
that partly that, but also just partly like I don't want anything bad to happen to my characters that I love and care about.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, honestly, how many times in my life has that happened? Like probably less than 10 where
Sure.
I've liked something enough where I was legitimately apprehensive about the next episode because I was like, if this bad thing happens to this character, I'm going to be really sad. Like actually, it's actually going to make me sad, and that's remarkable. You know, that puts it on a very special list for me.
Which of the characters do you feel like you are attached to their fate, or is it all of them?
Good question.
I mean, well, at least Huey and Starlight for me, but probably others as well. Like I would be really disappointed if any of a number of them just like died unceremoniously. For example, I would be like, oh, I really wanted to see where they were going with that plot thread and relationship. I don't know. Does anybody feel me?
I mean, I really like Mother's Milk, and I really like Frenchie a lot. And I'm super invested in those two guys, and I'm really worried something bad's gonna happen to one of them.
Yeah, I think they would be next on my list. I don't think Butcher is on my list of people I actually care about because he sucks.
Yeah, that's a fascinating thing about Butcher is I think that if especially in season 2, if there's one part of the show that hasn't worked on me, it's, you know, I don't really feel bad for him ever. Like there's moments in the second season, I think, where you're supposed to be like, dude, that sucks, I'm sorry. And I'm just like, See, I feel like you kind of deserve it.
Maybe you're right. I mean, my feeling toward him is like, I want this, and again, maybe we're gesturing at different things because we're being vague and oblique, but like, I'm like, I want this sort of bad thing to continue happening to him until he learns that he needs to stop being such an asshole and doing the things that lead to the situations happening where he gets, you know, where he has a sad, but yeah,
sure,
I don't know.
Sure, maybe, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think.
How about you, Michael? Do you have any emotional attachment to any of these characters?
No,
after season 1.
I think kind of what stood out to me. I'm kind of the opposite of Matt on this because I'm not attached to any of the characters. I don't really like any of the characters. I'm not really rooting for them as like, and by like, I mean, they wouldn't be my friends, but I do really like how all of the characters have been written. Like they're really interesting as characters in a story. And so I'm interested to see what happens to them.
Sure.
If bad things happen to them, I'll probably be like delighted if it's like, if it's like in a cool way, done in a cool way in an episode.
Sure. So your attachment to the show is not really rooted in emotion at all, but is just in like, you're appreciating it from a design.
I think so. I think it's like when you say you like movies that I don't believe you when you say you like, because I think they're so boring. But this is, but this isn't even boring. This is like, it's I appreciate the artistic bit of it, and I appreciate and the framing is interesting enough that I like watching it.
Okay, cool. I do actually
you
like those movies, though.
You don't know what means is the problem here.
I do, though.
I probably care about Mother's Milk and Frenchie more than I care about Huey and Starlight.
I find Huey a bit pathetic. Like he's kind of cringy to watch for me, actually.
Those are Huey is the kind of anti-Michael character that just I know, like, every time I see these characters and I'm like, Michael's not gonna like this guy.
Yeah. Well, I toward the beginning I was actually just like, okay, we're doing a Walter White thing with Huey, because he literally had a guy trapped in a thing and then ended up killing the guy reluctantly. I was like, yep, okay, we're doing the Walter White steps. He's going to turn into Scarface. And it's like, well, so far it doesn't actually seem to be that direct. Like it's not going to be that straightforward. It's not just like he becomes bad. It's going to be, I think, like everything else, they're not really interested in that sort of morality tale type of storytelling.
Sure.
But Frenchie just keeps getting more interesting with every episode, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh my God, yeah, he breaks my heart.
Yeah,
he really does.
He's fun.
Did you know Huey is played by a man named Jack Quaid? He's Dennis Quaid's son and Meg Ryan's son.
That, actually.
Oh my God.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? And now you'll see it. Now the next time you see him,
I can see it in my mind. I see Meg Ryan staring out from his face, and also Dennis Quaid staring out from his face.
Right?
I didn't even know. Wow.
Yeah, they were together. I don't think they are anymore, but they definitely were. They actually. Yeah, no, they divorced. I'm looking it up right now. They divorced back in 2001. So they were together for 10 years. They're basically all the 90s. It was Dennis Quaid, Meg Ryan show.
The washed up child superhero guy in season 1 was Haley Joel Osment.
Oh yeah.
That was great.
Yes, that was.
I mean, talk about nailing the idea that these are supposed to be, metaphors for celebrity, right?
Right. It's, that's another one of those moments where you just know, like, the show, like, did they, like, you wonder if they called up Haley Joel Osment and were like, we wrote this part for you. Or, I mean, like, he might have been a character in the comic. And as they were developing the show, they were like, we need Haley
I'm
Joel
surprised
Osment
they didn't just get Will Wheaton, because he's the kind of go-to guy for that kind of. but it was
sure.
I think they wanted a good actor.
Ooh, got him.
That's mean.
Yeah,
fucking Will Wheaton bashing coming out of nowhere.
That was just an opportunity that I saw, and I went for it. Okay,
the man has never done anything wrong in his life, and you just fucking
the joy he feels for board games is such a delight to behold. And here you've gone and
he does really love
dissed him.
Look, we're talking about the boys. Okay, everything is on the table here.
Yeah, just smash his fucking head in, Matt.
Smash
just
his head in with my foot.
All right. That's all we have to say about The Boys, I think. It's a great show. You folks out there should give it a shot. It's over the top violent. Like, so if that's the type of thing that just is a no-go for you, I totally get that.
Like,
but
I don't remember it. I mean, there's 2 scenes. Was it really that violent?
It's pretty fucking violent.
I feel like there's probably one scene per episode where something horrific happens, just like almost as a.
I think I've just been too desensitized, like Matt. Just like, oh yeah, that's normal.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have. I mean, in season 2, there's a moment where they drive a boat through a whale, and I have not laughed that hard. And
I'm laughing just thinking about it.
Or even, even like the way A-Train kills his girlfriend. It's like, it's not like grotesque, but it is horrifying.
Yeah,
you know,
it's
what I
not
mean?
like Seven.
Yeah.
No,
because it's so over the top. It becomes unbelievable, but the emotion, the stakes are still there.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. I love this show. I really love this show. I don't know. I can't believe I feel like this is such a narrow lane where you do the stuff that the comic is like the comic did, but also do something else to make it more interesting. Like, and I feel like just degree of difficulty here very high, and I'm just so happy that they pulled it off.
Yeah, I'm happy it exists because I was, there's a certain part of me that's sort of continually rolling its eyes at just like, oh my god, everything is superheroes all the time, and like I like superheroes, but then this comes and it's like, okay, this is a fresh enough angle that I don't feel oversaturated on it at all, really.
Yeah, and it's not just doing the deconstruction of the superhero things like we've seen, again and again and again. Like it is starting from that place, but it recognizes that place as just a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what I think I really appreciate about it.
Yeah.
So that's The Boys. It's also coming out weekly in season 2, something that a lot of people got very angry about for some reason, but I adore because I think that's how TV should be watched, not binged, but week to week. And I've been really loving like getting to watch an episode of The Boys once a week and then thinking about it and talking with my wife about it and what we liked. But like, it's just, I love watching TV that way. I really do.
Yeah, it gives me something to look forward to.
Yep.
Nice.
And in this hellhole of a year, we need stuff to look forward to.
Gives me one thing to look forward to. One thing.
Well, just one.
Doof.
But Michael, you watched some other stuff that you wanted to talk about really briefly here. So do you want to talk about some of the TV shows that you have been watching since you haven't gotten to Boys season 2 yet? You said you wanted to talk about Raised by Wolves, or at least the pilot of Raised by Wolves.
Oh yeah. I watched the pilot of Raised by Wolves because it was released for free on YouTube, and I don't own accounts to things, so I don't watch things on my own. But I liked I think Raised by Wolves pilot was a good standalone science fiction movie that doesn't really need a series behind it.
But it has a series,
and I appreciated it. I know it does, but it's just like, does it need to? Isn't it done? It's done.
It's not even close to done.
The ending of the pilot was like pretty much like, it's like it seemed like it was like a science fiction short story that could have been written by Philip K. Dick, or maybe it probably was actually. No one ever does original science fiction anymore. It was suitably boring, but intellectually interesting. Like you want your sci-fi to be. Like you don't want there to be a bunch of action in it. You want it to be slow paced.
Interesting. This is the Michael take on this. I didn't realize this.
You don't want action in your sci-fi.
Okay.
Am I right, Matt?
That's. Am I supposed to agree? Yes.
Don't
correct.
agree with him just because he's Michael.
I haven't seen this show, so I'm borderline tuning out. So there you go.
Oh, I just would have thought you would have seen this show.
No.
I've seen all 10 episodes of the show. The season finale was today, and I watched it, and I love it.
Oh. Like I said, The Boys is the only thing that I've watched that we haven't already done a Doofcast on. So,
yeah, I think the first episode was directed by Ridley Scott as well, which is always fun because he's just a very well skilled director sometimes.
Don't you shit on Ridley Scott frequently?
Well, I shit on Ridley Scott's. Sometimes the way he depicts emotion is really interesting. I mean, this is my old Ridley Scott as a robot thing, because
he's a sci-fi director. So
he's a robot that is directing sci-fi movies in order to understand human emotions through the lens of robots trying to understand what it is to be human.
Isn't that why we all read science fiction stories?
I mean, not necessarily. Why is he so obsessed with robots?
Understand humans?
I'm telling you.
Specifically from the perspective of being a robot, an actual artificial, like right. we actually believe that Ridley Scott is an actual robot.
Yes. Like I'm telling you, in 2 years it's going to be announced that Ridley Scott's next project is a movie about a director that's secretly a robot making sci-fi movies. That's what the movie's going to be about. And he's going to finally reveal that he's been a robot this whole time.
People are still not going to get it, though.
I think he's good at doing boring, actionless sci-fi, though.
Yes, the boring, actionless sci-fi alien.
What's funny is like, I know what you mean and I agree with you, but the way you're saying it is just
like he means heady intellectual sci-fi. That's like what you mean. And
yes.
I agree. Like this, Raised by Wolves is a show that is like super allegorical. Like everything has a meaning beyond what it just is, and it's a tough show to watch. It's a show that I really, now that it's done, I want to go back and watch all 10 episodes again, because knowing where it goes by the end of it, I really want to pay attention to the symbolism and the visuals and what it's doing and what it's saying. It's a fascinating show to me, and I love it to death. It's so weird. I think you're right that original science fiction, truly original science fiction, at least in the visual medium world, is just so rare these days. And to see something like this being made is just wonderful. I love it. I think the central performances of the character of Mother is so good. Like, she's incredible. She really is. And she's the driving force of the entire show. Both Mother and Father are, and they are phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Does Father come back? Spoiler?
I'm not going to spoil. You have to watch the show. You have to watch the show.
I was sad when Father died. He was a stand-up robot.
I honestly don't remember where the pilot ended and the rest of the show began, so I'm just going to carefully not say anything else.
He dies in the first episode.
Okay.
Yeah. Spoiler.
Poor guy.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. I also watched Cobra Kai.
Yeah, you have to tell us about this, because like everyone on the internet is saying to watch Cobra Kai, and I haven't watched it yet.
I enjoyed it. I mean, yeah, I don't really know whether I should recommend it.
Oh, interesting.
Or not, because I'm very careful with what I recommend to people.
Yeah, the Michael recommendation is the most important thing in the world.
So I don't think I'll give it a recommendation, because that would elevate it beyond what it deserves. But it was kind of fun, because I saw The Karate Kid when I was a kid, but I wasn't like super into its world or anything. Mm-hmm. And there's the bully character who, basically Ralph Macchio's whole motivation in the movie is to have a revenge fantasy on the bully character. And they properly recontextualize it. So the main character is the bully, and they have flashbacks to the movie to show that it wasn't really all that it seemed. And the bully and actually Ralph Macchio was just picking fights with the bully character for no good reason. And Ralph Macchio is now a sleazy used car salesman, so you don't like him. Or maybe not used car salesman, but car salesman. I don't know, whatever. Whereas the bully character has just become a drunk loser, so you like him. It was fun.
Cool. This is on Netflix, right?
It's on Netflix. It was actually originally a YouTube Red original that was released 3 years ago, but no one got YouTube Red, so YouTube eventually sold it to Netflix, and then people finally started watching it.
Good call, YouTube.
That's just wild that this is the world we live in.
Cool. Yeah, I think there are 2 seasons out, right?
Yeah, I only saw the first one, and then I decided it was done.
Yeah.
So you're so fascinating to me, because you're I don't want to recommend this. I watched it all, but I was done after the first season.
No, it had an arc that completed, because it mirrored the end of the original Karate Kid. And just like the Karate Kid sequels didn't really need to exist, neither did the second season of this show.
Huh. So
really, I'm being sort of a completist in terms of my artistic throwbacks.
So should I decide that Lost ended when they opened the hatch for the first time? That was
yeah, it ended after the first season. You're right.
Okay. Wow,
guys, I'm tired. I'm tired of this Lost bashing.
It was a great show.
It
was a great show.
Lost was a great show. Lost was a great show for 6 seasons, and I'm not going to stand for this Lost bashing.
Okay, it wasn't, and everyone knows you don't mean that. Just like when you said you liked Cloud Atlas.
I loved Cloud Atlas.
Another show that I watched a couple episodes of was Snowpiercer.
Oh, I heard about that show, but I have not bothered to watch any of it.
There's a train.
It's about a train, a post-apocalyptic train.
Is it a prequel to the movie, I guess? Spoilers for the movie?
Yeah. I think so. Either prequel or just kind of alternate. I don't know if it really references anything that happens in the movie, actually, but kind of just retelling, because the movie obviously has an end that can't be continued.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the most interesting thing about Snowpiercer is not that the world might still exist after the train, but obviously the train itself is the most interesting thing about Snowpiercer.
Right. Naturally.
A train ride that never ends. And so it's in this utopian future that we find our characters placed. And it's just really a delight to see these characters moving from one car to the next.
Okay.
The thing I love about you, Michael, is your consistency. You are consistent.
That I am. So that's a pretty good show.
All right. Awesome.
Also, there's another show that I watched.
Mhm.
Do you want to hear about the other show?
Before we started, you were like, I haven't been watching that much. And now you're just going on. So keep going. Keep going.
I'm talking about shows I started like months ago now because I haven't talked to you in years.
Mm-hmm.
You know that show with J.K. Simmons?
Which show?
The show with the two worlds.
I know what show you're talking about. I do not remember the name of it.
Yeah.
Do you remember the name of it?
No.
I almost do.
All right.
But
well,
not quite.
This is a great recommendation.
Hold on. I'm just going to type in J.K. Simmons show real quick.
Counterpart.
Counterpart. Thank you. So this is a show that has two worlds.
Uh-huh.
And J.K. Simmons is in both of those worlds.
But he's different.
Yeah. Well, so here's the actual, this is a good science fiction, like boring science fiction thing. They like had some experiment and the timeline like diverged, and they maintain this like little tunnel that connects the two timelines. And for a while, like the timelines were more or less the same, but then they started diverging. And anyway, one of the timelines has a massive pandemic, and everyone there like wears masks and sterilizes their hands when they go into theaters.
Oh,
So
fun.
that's this timeline. Okay.
Yeah. But it came out several years ago.
Yeah.
Where can I find the tunnel to the other timeline
interesting?
Well,
in my life?
I think that's the whole point.
But because of these things that were different, the two J.K. Simmonses are different people. So you get to see J.K. Simmons, who's one of the greatest actors of our generation,
He is a very good actor.
act twice.
That's great. I'm so honored to have J.K. Simmons as part of my generation. Yeah, I really want to watch this one, actually.
I don't think I finished the first season. I was enjoying it, but I think like it was just one of those things where we got distracted by some other shiny thing and never finished it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, would have thought.
I think they made a second season. I don't know if it has J.K. Simmons in it.
I think it does. I haven't seen the second season either, but it must, because he's pretty much the main. His two characters are the main characters.
He's a very busy man, though. He got like all those muscles for Justice League, and then he didn't get to use any of them.
Wait, he was in Justice League?
Yeah. He played Commissioner Gordon.
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
And he got like super muscly for the role, and then they cut most of his part.
Don't worry. It'll be in the Snyder
cut. The Snyder cut that's going to cost $100 million to finish.
What? Are they actually filming more things?
Oh, you were so disconnected from the world, Michael.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're in for a treat, Michael.
Yeah. The Snyder Cut's coming to HBO Max.
What are you even talking about?
The Snyder Cut. This is not a joke.
We're not kidding.
They're actually making the Snyder Cut, and it's going to cost $100 million for them to make it.
Doesn't a cut just imply that it's like editing?
Yeah, that's what that word usually implies.
I mean, like, what's going on with their like Final Cut Pro subscription that it costs $100 million?
Well, you see, they have a whole bunch of CGI they need to do, and they're bringing a bunch of the actors back to film additional scenes for the Snyder Cut that was totally done and finished, and it's just that Warner Brothers wouldn't let Zack Snyder release it.
Is DC stupid?
No, they're actually smart. This is actually brilliant on their part.
Well, I would have said it was more brilliant if it wasn't going to cost $100 million to make it.
Yeah, like that's a lot of things.
But
do you know what's funny is Justice League, because of everything that happened with that, went way over budget too. So it was reportedly above $300 million to make that movie. So like add on the $100 million from this cut, and it's going to become the most expensive movie ever made.
Aren't they also re-releasing Suicide Squad, only different?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's not like basically DC has just kind of stopped caring about like any kind of connected shared universe thing and is just doing whatever the fuck they want now, which is probably the smart thing to do.
Are any of the movies making money?
Yeah. Aquaman made a shit ton of money. Shazam did pretty good. Basically everything after Justice League has been doing pretty decent. Wonder Woman made a lot of money.
I don't like it.
Did
you know that J.K. Simmons was the voice of Cave Johnson in the video game Portal 2?
I did. Yeah. Did you know that Matt still hasn't played Portal 2?
That's surprising.
Every time someone brings up Portal, I have to remind Matt that he hasn't played it yet to make him feel bad.
Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Well,
hey, how about we? This episode has just evolved into nonsense. So how about we just wrap it up? How about that? Is that a good idea?
There's more things I've been watching.
No, I think you're done.
God, I watch so much TV.
Yeah. Did you guys see The Mandalorian last year?
Yeah, we've definitely talked about that already.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
I'm really worried.
And the first season of Mr. Robot, that was good.
Okay, Michael, now you've gone years back.
And that's all we've got for you this week, folks.
Yeah, that is all we have for you this week. If you have any opinions on any of the random shit we talked about, feel free to reach out to us via email at doofmedia.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia.
Yeah, if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode of the next 100 that are going to be just like this one. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
Have you guys seen Prison Break?
And you can find this and all of our shows over at our website, doofmedia.com. And if you like what we do here and want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. You can head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and pledge at one of our many levels. At the $10 level, you get access to our suite of bonus podcasts, one of which is The Freeman Brothers, which just today released a new episode featuring none other than Michael, our guest on this show. So,
wait, what? I didn't give consent for that.
I feel like you must have.
Yeah,
I talked for 2 hours.
What? Yeah. I thought that was just a group call.
Michael, we'll send our lawyer over to talk to you.
You don't have a lawyer.
Yeah. So anyway, please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
God, this is a long end roll.
Next week on the show, for real this time, we will be watching and talking about Bahubali, the beginning, for our Council of Doof episode this month. So make sure you watch that if you didn't
they're not
going
to watch it.
They might. It's on Netflix.
They're not going to watch it.
Michael, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show.
This is my prediction.
Real pleasure, Michael, as always.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you. Good night.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.